You ever feel like everything was going perfectly, and then out of nowhere he pulls away? One moment you're connected, sharing inside jokes, dreaming about the future, and the next, distant, cold, like you don't even recognize him anymore. Let me tell you something that no one talks about. Men don't leave because of how you look, what you said, or because they lost interest. They leave because a core emotional need goes unmet. A need even they don't fully understand. Most women keep trying to fix things by giving more, loving harder, proving their worth. But here's the truth. The more you chase, the faster he runs. If you've ever asked, why did he lose feelings? What changed? What did I do wrong? This video is going to change the way you see everything. Because today I'm going to show you how to flip the script. Not by changing who you are, but by tapping into a natural energy you already have, but may not be using the right way. You don't need to beg, impress, or compete. You just need to understand how men bond, and what triggers their deep emotional loyalty. This isn't about playing games. It's about embodying a magnetic presence that makes the right man never want to leave. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share could shift every relationship you have from this point forward. Ready? Let's begin. You don't become magnetic by trying harder to please someone. You become magnetic when you shift from performance to presence. And the most magnetic women, they're not the loudest in the room. They're not the most perfect, and they're definitely not the most available. They are the ones who know themselves deeply, and they operate from that grounded energy. Let me break it down. A magnetic woman embodies three things: mystery, mastery, and emotional sovereignty. Mystery doesn't mean being secretive or manipulative. It means you don't put everything on the table at once. You let people earn the deeper layers of you. You allow space for curiosity to grow. Think of how a great movie doesn't reveal its entire plot in the first 5 minutes. It hooks you with tension, anticipation, and slow reveals. You can do the same in how you show up. Next, mastery. This means you have a life that's full and rich with or without a man. You're cultivating your passions, building emotional intelligence, and setting standards for how you expect to be treated. You don't try to be chosen because you already choose yourself. That energy, it's rare, and men can feel it instantly. And finally, emotional sovereignty. This is the deal breaker. Most women lose their magnetism the moment they attach their self-worth to his validation. The magnetic woman feels deeply, but she doesn't get lost in other people's emotional storms. She responds, she doesn't react. She can love fully without abandoning herself. That's power. When you operate from this formula, men can't help but lean in. They may not even know why, but they feel it. You're different. You're not demanding attention. You command it just by being. You see, attraction built on surface-level traits fades. But the energy of a woman who knows who she is, that sticks. It lingers in his mind. It becomes unforgettable. And that's where your real magnetism lives. Not in the way you look, but in the way you move through the world. Stay with me, because up next, I'll show you how to activate this feminine energy in a way that naturally pulls the right man closer, without saying a single word. Feminine energy and masculine attraction aren't about gender roles or old school stereotypes. This is about the natural polarity that creates deep magnetic chemistry. It's the push and pull that keeps connection alive, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. See, most relationships lose their spark not because love disappears, but because polarity dissolves. And one of the fastest ways that happens is when a woman starts operating too much from her masculine energy in the relationship. Masculine energy is action-oriented. It wants direction, control, problem-solving, pursuit. It's structured, focused, and driven. Feminine energy, on the other hand, is about flow. It's about being, not doing. It's intuitive, receptive, creative, expressive. It moves like water. It feels like music. It invites instead of chases. It inspires instead of demands. Here's what happens. Many women have been conditioned to survive in masculine environments, working hard, being independent, staying in control. And while that's powerful in business or leadership, it can create conflict in romantic dynamics if you carry that same energy into the relationship space. When two masculine energies meet, it becomes competitive. When a woman is always leading, solving, planning, and initiating, she may accidentally leave no space for the man to step into his own masculine role. He doesn't feel needed or even desired in the way he wants to be. And over time he disengages, not because he doesn't care, but because he no longer feels that magnetic pull. But when a woman shifts into her feminine energy, not as an act, but as a return to her natural state, something changes. She stops needing to prove. She relaxes into her body. She listens more than she explains. She becomes open to receiving, rather than chasing outcomes. And when that happens, the man instinctively leans in. Why? Because he wants to pursue. He wants to provide. He wants to protect and connect. That's his natural wiring when the space allows for it. This isn't about dimming yourself. It's not about being passive or submissive. True feminine energy is wildly powerful. It's the energy of creation, intuition, and emotional intelligence. It doesn't fight for love. It attracts love. And the most confident, grounded men are deeply drawn to women who embody this energy. So if you've ever felt like you were doing all the right things, but still not feeling emotionally safe or cherished, check where you're operating from. Are you in constant control mode? Or are you letting yourself soften, receive, and trust? Feminine energy doesn't beg. It doesn't over-explain. It doesn't perform. It simply is. And in that stillness, it calls in exactly what it desires, without ever needing to chase it. Coming up next, I'm going to walk you through the emotional triggers that bond a man to you at the deepest level, so deep, he won't even fully understand why you are the one he can't let go of. Emotional bonding isn't about constant communication or grand romantic gestures. It's about how a person feels about themselves when they're with you. That's the foundation of lasting connection. And it's especially true for men because whether they say it or not, most men are starved for a safe emotional experience. Here's what you need to understand. Men don't fall in love because of how you feel about them. They fall in love because of how they feel about themselves in your presence. Read that again. For a man to bond with a woman on a deep emotional level, he needs to experience three things consistently: emotional safety, respect, and a sense of personal significance. Emotional safety doesn't mean walking on eggshells or avoiding conflict. It means he feels like he can open up without being judged, criticized, or made to feel weak. Most men are taught to suppress vulnerability, so when a woman creates space for him to share without fixing or controlling, that's incredibly rare and incredibly powerful. Respect is another core pillar. Men are biologically wired to seek purpose and impact. When a man feels respected, not just admired but genuinely valued for who he is, it activates a sense of identity and pride in the relationship. That doesn't mean agreeing with everything he says or never challenging him. It means honoring his masculinity, his decisions, his journey. And finally, significance. Every human wants to feel like they matter. But for men, this shows up in very specific ways. He wants to feel needed, appreciated, and chosen, not because you can't live without him, but because you could, and still choose to. That's what makes a man bond. When you show that his presence matters, but not out of desperation, that's when it sticks. Most women try to create emotional connection through overgiving, constant reassurance, or chasing clarity, but that can actually push men further away. Why? Because it creates pressure, and pressure feels like emotional weight. Instead, connection is built in the spaces in between, in how you listen, how you pause before reacting, how you respond when he pulls back. Men bond differently. For women, it might be through deep conversation. For men, sometimes it's just existing together, laughing, playing, sharing moments of ease. It's in the silence, the support, the subtle expressions of trust. When a man feels emotionally at peace in your presence, something activates in him that goes beyond logic. He starts to crave you, not just your body but your essence. That's not surface level attraction. That's imprinting. That's emotional bonding. Up next, I'm going to show you how to stay high value and deeply desirable without playing games or withdrawing love, because maintaining this bond means never losing yourself in the process. There's a huge misconception floating around that being high value means being distant, unbothered, or emotionally detached. But that's not real strength. That's fear disguised as control. The truth is, a high-value woman is deeply connected to herself first. She doesn't shut down or build walls to appear strong. She sets boundaries with love. She doesn't push people away to protect her heart. She simply doesn't beg to be chosen. So let's get clear. Being high value doesn't mean acting like you don't care. It means caring deeply without losing your dignity. It's not about making him chase you. It's about not abandoning yourself to chase him. When you're operating from true value, you don't have to play games. You don't pull away just to get a reaction. You don't punish with silence. You don't manipulate through distance. That's not high value. That's high defense. And men can feel the difference. Real value is calm. It's knowing that your presence is a privilege, not something to be negotiated. It's having standards, not ultimatums. It's being able to express your needs, not from fear, but from self-respect. That energy, it's irresistible. And here's the key. Warmth is not weakness. You can be soft and still have strong boundaries. You can be emotionally available without being emotionally dependent. The right man won't see your openness as a weakness. He'll see it as a rare kind of strength, the kind he can trust. So how do you find that balance? You start by validating your own emotions before looking for external reassurance. You check in with yourself. Am I speaking from my worth or my wounds? You practice saying no without guilt. You let people get close, but you don't override your intuition to keep them there. And most importantly, you know that walking away is always an option. Not out of ego, but out of clarity. A high-value woman doesn't threaten to leave to control a man, but she will walk if her core needs are ignored. And because she holds herself to that standard, the right man respects her even more. You don't have to prove your worth. You just have to stop negotiating it. You don't become magnetic by becoming cold. You become magnetic by becoming whole. That inner wholeness creates a quiet power that doesn't demand attention. It draws it in. So if you've ever felt torn between being too nice or too cold, remember this. You can be kind and clear, soft and strong, warm and wise. That's the sweet spot. And when you learn to live in that energy consistently, you stop chasing connection, because connection starts chasing you. Coming up next, we're going deeper into the subtle behaviors most women overlook, yet they drive men absolutely wild in the best way. Sometimes it's not the grand gestures or picture-perfect moments that make a man fall deeper for you. It's the small, almost invisible things that trigger something powerful inside him. These subtle behaviors don't scream for attention, but they leave a lasting impression. They create that feeling of, I don't know what it is about her, but I can't stop thinking about her. Let's start with one of the most magnetic behaviors, presence. When you're fully present, not checking your phone, not planning what to say next, just there, listening and engaging, it's rare. Men are used to having to compete for attention. When you give yours freely and calmly, it makes him feel seen in a way most people overlook. That quiet confidence, he feels it, and it drives him wild, not in a flashy way, but in a deep, I need more of her way. Next, eye contact, not staring, not trying to seduce, just lingering eye contact that says, I'm here with you. It's primal. It builds intimacy faster than words. When you hold his gaze without rushing to look away, it creates a spark that lingers long after the conversation ends. Another subtle move, pausing before you speak. Most people rush to fill silence, especially when they feel nervous or want to impress. But when you pause, even for half a second, before responding, it gives your words more weight. It shows you're thoughtful. You're not trying to win him over, you're just grounded. That kind of emotional regulation is rare, and men notice it instantly. Here's another behavior, light teasing or playful mystery. Not sarcasm, not manipulation, just a little unpredictability in how you speak or respond. A glance, a smirk, a half joke that leaves him curious. That playful tension creates polarity. It keeps the interaction alive and fresh. And let's talk about feminine embodiment, how you move. You don't have to be overly sensual, but simple things like slowing down your movements, softening your voice, or letting your body language stay relaxed. It all communicates safety and sensuality. A woman in her body, not in her head, has a magnetic pull without even trying. One more, letting him lead sometimes, even when you don't have to. Whether it's letting him plan a date, take the reins in conversation, or initiate something small, it speaks to a deep part of his masculine identity. When done with trust, not from helplessness. This creates a dynamic where he feels like the man in your presence, and that ignites something ancient and undeniable. These aren't tricks, they're expressions of self-awareness, confidence, and feminine power. The more natural they become, the more you'll see how effortlessly you shift the energy in any room or relationship. Coming up next, we'll dive into how to use communication that doesn't just get his attention, but speaks directly to his soul. Most people talk to be understood, but magnetic women, they speak to connect. The difference is subtle, but powerful. Magnetic communication isn't about saying the perfect words or constantly explaining yourself. It's about how you speak, your energy, your tone, and your ability to speak with intention, not emotion-driven urgency. When you speak from your soul instead of your fear, everything changes. Let's start with one of the most underrated communication tools: pausing. Most women rush to explain, justify, or smooth things over. But silence, when used with confidence, can be more powerful than 100 words. When you give space between your words, it makes what you say land harder. It also signals that you're grounded, secure, and not emotionally chaotic. That calm presence, it draws a man in because it creates emotional safety. Another part of magnetic communication is using feeling language instead of blame. So instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you say, "I feel unseen when we talk, and I really want to feel closer to you." See the difference? One creates defensiveness, the other creates connection. Men respond to vulnerability when it's delivered with emotional maturity, not emotional chaos. Also, less is more. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to fill every silence. In fact, holding your words, using more body language, and being comfortable in pauses creates an energy that says, "I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just being real with you." And that honesty, when rooted in self-respect, hits differently. One of the most magnetic ways to speak, with warmth in your eyes and softness in your voice, even when you're being direct. Most people think strong communication has to be sharp or dominant, but real feminine communication is powerful because it's gentle, it disarms, it lowers defenses. It makes a man want to lean in and listen, not out of fear, but out of desire. Also, learn to speak to his potential, not his failures. When you speak to the part of him that wants to show up for you, instead of the part that's falling short, you activate something powerful inside him. He wants to rise for you, not because he's being forced to, but because you believe in what he could be. And finally, know when to say nothing. There's power in letting your silence speak for you. When you've communicated your truth, and it's not being heard, you don't have to beg. Your calm withdrawal will speak volumes. That's emotional intelligence, and it's magnetic. Coming up, I'll show you how to turn this deep emotional connection into lasting desire, the kind of attraction that doesn't fade after the honeymoon phase ends. It's easy to create desire in the beginning. Newness is exciting. Chemistry is electric. But real power lies in your ability to create long-term emotional desire, the kind that doesn't burn out after the chase ends, but actually deepens with time. So how do you do that? It starts with understanding this attraction is not static. It either expands or fades depending on how emotionally safe and emotionally stimulating the connection remains. And for a man to stay emotionally engaged, he needs to feel both secure with you and challenged in the right ways. That balance is everything. Let's talk about emotional safety first. This is what makes a man want to stay. It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending everything's fine. It's about being someone he can be fully himself with. That means you don't punish him for being vulnerable. You don't throw his fears back at him in an argument. You don't make love conditional on him being perfect. When a man feels accepted, he relaxes. And when he relaxes, he opens up more. That's where intimacy grows. But safety alone isn't enough. You also need emotional tension, not drama, but the subtle spark that keeps things alive. This comes from having a full, rich life outside of him. When you're constantly growing, evolving, and chasing your own passions, he doesn't just admire you, he stays intrigued by you. You become a mystery he never fully solves. And men love mystery, especially when it's paired with consistency and warmth. Another key, playfulness. Laughter, inside jokes, unexpected affection, these things don't just keep things fun. They create emotional bonding through joy. Playfulness is often the first thing couples lose when comfort kicks in. But when you keep it alive, it becomes the emotional glue that holds everything together. And don't underestimate emotional depth. Share your dreams. Speak from your heart. Let him see the woman behind the smile. When you show him layers, your confidence, your fears, your ambitions, he feels like he's discovering new parts of you over time. That depth is magnetic. Also, don't be afraid to pull back when needed, not as a punishment, but as a reset. Space can reignite desire. When you create space with grace, it allows him to reflect, miss you, and re-choose you without pressure. It shows you're not afraid to be alone, which paradoxically makes him want to be with you even more. Lastly, never stop embodying your feminine energy. Keep nurturing your softness, your sensuality, your intuition. The most unforgettable women are the ones who never stop being in tune with themselves, no matter how long the relationship lasts. That's how long-term emotional desire is created, not by clinging, proving, or performing, but by being fully rooted in who you are while still making space for connection to grow. Coming up next, we'll pull it all together, and I'll reveal the most powerful secret of all when it comes to being the woman he can't walk away from. Let's take a breath and pull all of this together. You've learned a lot in the past few minutes, not just about men, but about yourself. You've seen how true magnetism doesn't come from being perfect, performing, or pretending. It comes from alignment, from being in tune with your feminine energy, holding your standards without shutting down, and building emotional bonds that go far deeper than surface-level attraction. We started by talking about why men leave. It's not because you're not good enough. It's because most women are operating from a place of fear, not power. The fear of not being chosen. The fear of being too much. The fear of losing love if they don't constantly give. But once you let go of that fear, everything changes. Then we introduced the magnetic woman formula. Mystery, mastery, and emotional sovereignty. That's not a gimmick. That's your foundation. That's what creates emotional pull, not pressure. It's what makes him feel something he can't explain but doesn't want to lose. You learned how feminine energy fuels masculine attraction, not by controlling the man, but by creating space for him to step into his role. You don't chase, you invite. You don't fix, you feel, and in doing so you become unforgettable. Not because you demand attention, but because your energy commands it. You also learned the psychology behind emotional bonding. How men fall in love with how they feel about themselves when they're with you. That's the hidden truth most women never realize. Then we went deeper. How to be high value without being cold. How to embody subtle, powerful behaviors that drive men crazy in the best way. How to communicate in a way that speaks not just to his ears, but to his soul. And how to turn short-term chemistry into long-term emotional desire. But here's the most powerful secret of all. Your magnetism is not something you have to create. It's something you return to. You were born with it. You were born with it. Before the heartbreak, before the overthinking, before the self-doubt, before someone convinced you that being too emotional or too soft was a weakness. You don't need to become someone else to be loved. You just need to remember who you were before you started hiding who you really are. The most magnetic women in the world, they're not chasing love. They're not performing for attention. They're simply being fully, unapologetically, authentically. And that kind of energy, it doesn't just attract a man, it keeps him. So as we wrap up, ask yourself, are you ready to stop chasing and start attracting? Are you ready to stop shrinking and start shining? Because when you become that woman, grounded, radiant, emotionally clear, he won't just stay, he'll never want to leave. As we come to the end of this journey, remember this: becoming magnetic isn't a quick fix or a checklist of tricks. It's a lifelong practice, a way of living that starts with knowing your worth and honoring your essence every single day. Magnetism flows from authenticity. It's about fully embracing who you are, your light and your shadows, your softness and your strength. When you stop trying to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be, and instead step into your own truth, something shifts. The energy you put out changes. It becomes effortless. it becomes magnetic. You don't need to chase attention or validation from anyone outside of yourself. The most magnetic women are the ones who carry their own approval. They smile from a place of self-love. They speak from a place of confidence, and they move through the world with quiet power. This energy draws people, not just romantic partners, but friends, colleagues, and opportunities toward you like a natural force. And because it's rooted in your authentic self, it lasts. It doesn't fade when the honeymoon phase ends or when challenges arise. Remember, magnetism is emotional clarity, self-respect, and soulful presence all rolled into one. It's the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. It's the way you treat yourself when things get hard. It's the way you love and accept without conditions. So, as you move forward, commit to nurturing this energy. Set boundaries that honor your needs. Practice kindness toward yourself. Listen deeply to your intuition. And most importantly, keep growing. Because growth fuels magnetism. When you embody this magnetic energy for life, you create a ripple effect that transforms everything around you. You don't just attract love, you inspire it. You don't just keep relationships, you elevate them. And you don't just live, you thrive. Thank you for being here. Your journey to magnetic, lasting love starts with becoming magnetic for life.